Oh, I give up. I absolutely give up. Do you know, there is no way that one can position oneself to sit comfortably and speak to you on a chair like this and give off some sort of flattering shape, because I have to sit poker straight like this. You know, I'm as thin as a rail, you know, but no matter what I wear, when I'm sitting in this chair presenting to you, I end up seeing in the editing, it's kind of like this sort of affair, and this baggy old affair. I mean, this is a baggy jacket on me, you know, admittedly. It was a charity shop find from your tip jar treat donations, of course. But, you know, it's just never flattering. Please don't send me tips. I haven't got the time to take things in and knit things up and get the chair in certain positions at all. I just totally understand, my dear, why most YouTubers you see cut themselves off here, and they just have a little head down in the corner here, because it's just never flattering to have this midsection on display, even if you've got a supermodel figure like me. I'm all of a fluster. Sorry, my dear, but I've been here twitching in the seat, twerking. What is it they call it? When you're on spice, that drug. I wonder if that's something that Harry's experimented. What's that spice drug? What does that make it do when you twitch and twerk? Now the mind's going to go. The mind's going to go. Anyway, YouTuber problems. Any of you fellow YouTubers will come across this kind of problem, because you can sometimes spend, you know, a long time doing the recording, and then you get all your scraps of footage together, and you look at the editing, and there's something that you cannot take your eyes off of the whole thing. A few days ago, I made a video, and there was a smudge of lip gloss in the corner here, and I knew what was going to come. I knew that I would get so many people giving me advice how to treat cold sores and herpes. I've never had herpes in my life, or a single cold sore, but in came the recommendations. Very kind of you, my dears, I'm sure, but I don't have cold sores. It wasn't a cold sore. I nearly put a warning at the beginning. This is not a cold sore, but I digress. I've got to calm down. It's Harry that's getting me all twitchy like this. It's Harry. And also, the other thing I've got to do... Oh, look, I can see myself in the... Already, it looks like I'm slumping all over the place. This is why sometimes I will just tie a ruddy stole around my middle here, and oh look, I'm just emerging from a cloud. Isn't that lovely? There we have this lovely effect. And the other thing that's annoying me is that this chair, this throne, has developed a sort of creak. So whenever I move to express something to you, it sounds as if wind is escaping from some sort of orifice. And again, no tips, no advice on how to do anything about it. No, my dear, it's not my jurisdiction. One just gets on with things, doesn't one? Now, I want to caveat this little chit-chat we're going to have. I've scribbled down a few notes I need to come to you with, and as you can tell, I'm a bit chaotic today. If you don't like that, if you don't want that kind of style, be off with you. I don't want to hear about it. You know, this is Sunday. I've got to relax at some point today. I've got a church service to attend and a lunch, a nice Sunday lunch, and, you know, I've got to get it out my system before then. So I'm coming to that in that spirit. And what was I going to say? Yes, I will have to make a caveat, because I'm going to be using the word mad here and there sometimes in this broadcast. Harry's madness. I am speaking figuratively, just for any lunatics out there, and also legally, I will make that very clear for legal reasons, that I am not suggesting that Harry is mad, and I am using the term figuratively. Secondly, this is a channel with a sense of humour and an irreverent run. You know, I tend to send things up a little bit. If you don't find it amusing, I totally understand that. I totally accept that. But, for example, yesterday I spoke about Mad Princess Alice of Greece, the late Mad Princess Alice of Greece. And yes, I chucked it in there for a little bit of humour. Yes, she was a little bit off her rocker, a little bit bonkers. And as some of you pointed out, she was a deeply spiritual woman that was probably misunderstood in her time. I get that. Don't you think that I have a few different layers to me? And I understand it. But I also think that life is too short to be so precious about things. And just in case you're in any doubt, this is not the channel for sensitive souls, for those who are easily triggered, or who are going to take offence at me calling the lovely and late Princess Alice. But, you know, she did die 54 years ago. She's not around to get offended, and it was a throwaway comment at the end of the video from this creation. Who really cares if I call her mad, or if no. I mean, some people have got a lot of time on their hands, and I just wish that they would choose to spend that precious time of theirs elsewhere, because I didn't invite them here. You know, as much as I adore having the company of the vast majority of you, and you're all extremely welcome here, I didn't invite you here. You know, No one's forcing you to watch or holding you here at gunpoint, are they, my loves? Do you know what I mean? Get it? Got it? Good. Okay, now we can get on with this show with a sense of maturity. Sense of maturity. You know, there's much talk. There was much talk in this extravaganza with, what's his name? The Hungarian. Gabor Mate. Much talk about the grip of addiction. Harry's addictions. And one thing that became totally evident to me, totally clear over the course of this conversation and over the course of the past couple of years, is that whether or not the boy can be interpreted as mad in any way or not, I'm just going to cut to the chase and tell you that his chief addiction, all the psychedelics, all the drug, all the drama, all this, that and the other, and this apparent attention deficit he has been diagnosed with, you know, his addiction, his chief drug is Meghan Markle. She is his drug. She is his panacea. Her smell is his favourite smell, as he told us. He's intoxicated by that drug. Her touch is balm. Sweet nectar. Her voice is a symphony. That honey drip. That little bit of honey drip. Harry. Oh, Harold, it's party time. No. Down, boy. Yes, it's party time. Help yourself. Yeah. Her mind is an orgy of brilliance. She knows. She's so smart. She's so... My partner, my wife, my beloved, my betrothed, my fancy piece. Anything but Meghan. He can't even bring himself. She's just so precious that he can't... Don't call me Meghan in public. I'm either the Duchess of Sussex or your wife. That's the royal way, didn't you know? She is his heroine. Heroine, my dear. And do you know of anyone, or have you ever gone cold turkey after the vice-like grip of heroin? That drug that makes you feel warm and safe, as if you're in your mother's womb and you never want to escape. Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter what your friends tell you. It doesn't matter how they plead with your parents. And this is serious stuff, my dear. Have you gone cold turkey? You know, I read recently a biography of Amy Winehouse, and it was such a brilliant one by Tyler James, who was her best friend. Much better than a lot of everything else that's been written about her. Actually, he co-wrote it with, who's that fabulous pop writer that I like, Sylvia something or other. Sylvia Patterson, of course, wrote it with her. And I knew Amy Winehouse. Camden and its enclaves and its people and its characters make up a great deal of my life, and it becomes a very small world in that part of town. And he explains the grip of addiction so very well, that vice-like grip it has around you. And that is what comes to mind when I think about Harry and his relationship to Meghan, and when you hear him speak about it. Because who doesn't like to hear somebody speak about the raptures of love? Or actually, no, I always find it pretty nauseating, really, unless it's me that's doing the talking. There's nothing more dull, is there, really? Let's face it, than someone waxing lyrical about their latest flame. Can get pretty boring, can't it? You know, for the first couple of minutes you humour them, and then you're like, okay, lovely, and they're in this stage. Well, he's in this stage permanently. Can't get over the rush of the courtship period or the honeymoon. He needs it. This energy of his that needs that attention and approval from the fancy piece. Just before we go on any further, in case you haven't heard, we have had a spokesperson for the Sussexes. Do you think they should come with a bugle? I think they should come with a bugle, Harry, to make the world realise that we're talking about the Duke and Duchess here. Just picture their little bugle tin horns with their little flag, with their little Montecito Meghan designed emblem of a cannabis leaf hanging from it. A spokesperson for the Sussexes confirmed that Harry had recently received email correspondence from His Majesty's office regarding the coronation. An immediate decision on whether the Duke and Duchess will attend will not be disclosed by us at this time. Oh, how gracious of them to let us know. Isn't that very telling when you read between the lines? Because the word invitation to the coronation isn't actually mentioned. They don't say Harry was invited by His Majesty. We've received an invitation. No, they recently received email correspondence regarding the coronation, not an invitation. And also, they didn't receive it from the King or from His Majesty. Don't think too fast, no. They received it from His Majesty's office. Yes, that's how cordial / frosty relations are right now. Make of that what you will, but I found it a little bit intriguing. My understanding, actually, is that Charles's approach to this matter is very clean. As I've said before, continues to be informed, although it sounds very unsexy, by his Christian values and beliefs. He was seen this this morning, attending church, by the way, at Sandringham as usual, Mary Magdalene's, attending church. He is a prayerful man, and just like most men, he will never live down some shades of his past. Just like most men, he's gotten things wrong. But like any decent good man, he seeks to improve himself, not through gobbledygook therapy in California, but through worshipful service to God and an appreciation of art and culture and people and his subjects. You see, the way you go about improving yourself, therein lies the result, therein lies the rub. And if you're led off down some strange path, then you're up a certain creek without a paddle, aren't you, my lover? Then you're up a certain creek. But the King's approach is a clean approach that is not based on an emotional appeasement of Harold, much to Harold's chagrin. No, it's not. Bear in mind, my dear, just bear in mind, while all this is going on, all Harry's interviews, all the headlines about Harry, we're coming up to the coronation in 2 months' time of the longest waiting, longest serving heir apparent in history. The longest wait in history, all those years, as Prince of Wales, to become king. And in his hour, in his moment, even those who aren't that into the monarchy or don't especially like Charles, the vast majority seem to understand that this is his moment, that is deserved, well deserved, as a faithful servant to the Queen, as he was, and as a faithful servant to the country in his role as the Duke of Cornwall and all kinds of other roles, and the Prince of Wales and everything. He deserves this moment, and there's no way around it. I mean, the coronation will be the King's day, and we will ensure it, my dear. But, the limelight and the spotlight is being sullied by his second son. Or, I should say, there is an attempt to hijack it by the son and by the machinations of the daughter-in-law as well. This is the coronation we're heading for, not the harcolation. That's what they would rather have it, isn't it? So, the harcle show, put your heels up, away we go. This whole Ethel Merman affair, it's not cricket. Charles's approach is, you don't like the family or the job, you've expressed that very well, so you are free to leave. Nobody is holding you here. Okay, you want to go, we'd love to have you stay, but go if you must. And with regards to the coronation, you are my son, so you are invited to come. If you want, make your arrangements, and if you don't, don't. He's not making a fuss or being drawn into petty exchanges. And I spoke very recently, and I always speak about the royal way. And in my opinion, that is very royal. Because it is King Charles who will come out of this looking like the man who is generous of spirit, unflustered by petty dramas, and mature. Because that's what's lacking in Harry, isn't it? It's an element of maturity that William, despite his troubles and his traumas, has managed to attain at the side of a woman who supports him and supports his role and destiny, rather than tries to urinate all over it, rip up the pages and do things like, no way, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what's key, Harry. I'm a female executive and a proud woman of colour, so I know what I'm talking about a lot more than dusty old King Charles. Really? You're so right. You're so right, Meghan. I've seen the light. I've seen it. Do all kinds of things. Harry is in a pickle. Because on a deep level, he understands that this is a monumental day. Yes, he does recognise this on a deep level. He also loves his father on a deep level. You might not see it. You might not realise it. It might be a very strange version of love and a really warped one. But he does. He craves his father's love. Oh, daddy, 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 I crave your love. But he's in a pickle. Because he wants to be there. This is the thing. He wants to be there. But because he fears irrelevance as well, for another thing. But his plan to elicit an apology from his father and his brother and everybody else in the royal family, down to Princess Michael of Kent, now retired, he wants his apologies. And he wants them for his wife as a condition of their starring role. If you want us to come along and, bring some attraction, get in the crowds for you, Daddy. If you want us to come along, you're going to have to apologise, Never toke. You're going to have to apologise. And what does he receive in return? Blanket. No, not blanket, Jackson. Blanket silence, a wall of silence. Or oh, how interesting. Not going to happen, my love. You ain't getting your apology. Unless you're the one that's giving it to King Charles. His plan has backfired, and all he's gotten, is an eviction and tumbleweed. Congratulations, Harry. Congratulations. And it's been noted in this Gabor Mate interview that there were no further attacks on the family. I mean, you could say that the whole thing was an attack on the family. I get that. But no specific attacks, no new scandals, new story. He didn't put anyone's name in his mouth directly. No mention of Catherine and William and all these other people that have hurt him so very, very badly. He doesn't mention them. A little bit contrite, perhaps. Probably too much to expect. And did you get wind of this? Rebel Wilson has been on the prowl in the media. Rebel Wilson has spoken out about the meeting with Harry and Meghan, and she wasn't impressed with Meghan. And she offered this information willingly, eagerly, quite voluntarily, and with a little bit of relish, I've got to say. She seemed to be relishing the reveal. She met and was introduced to Harry and Meghan by a polo player, a mutual friend who's a polo player. I wonder if it was old Cheesy Nachos or one of that group. She was introduced and she said, Harry couldn't have been nicer. But she then quickly said, but Meghan was not as cool. Meghan wasn't as naturally warm, she said. She was not struck at all. So it's not just rumour that the survivors or ex-employees or, people will say, you always hear these rumours about people not getting along with her employees, but you will never find actually someone come out and say it. Well, props to Rebel. She has come out and laid down the gauntlet. She does not like Meghan. She didn't get on with her, although she liked Harry. Although she did admit, after she said perhaps her mother was a bit overbearing because her mother was there as well. And apparently she was probing Meghan, Rebel Wilson's mother, and probing questions. And she asked a question that you lot are always asking in the comments. Where are your kids? Regardless, I'm sure you all know by now that Harry was diagnosed in this live interview with this Maté character as having attention deficit disorder. Is that the right way around? ADD anyway. And apparently he has been diagnosed with all kinds of things: ADD, PTSD, depression, anxiety, and panic disorder. Sounds like a barrel of laughs, doesn't it? But for those of you who need trigger warning, I am a trigger, okay? I am a trigger. You should not be watching this broadcast, now or ever again. So, vamoose, quit watching. Whether you've got a healthy mental constitution or not, whatever it is, if you're triggered by the slightest thing, you know, if you are triggered by this, or my beautiful arsehole, then do one, I don't care. I'm not going to live in this clown world. But I was brought up in a world that deals with things with a healthy sense of humour and an ability to have a giggle at oneself. And even the people that suffer with these sort of afflictions have that sense of humour. I mean, it's a gift to have, and I've always surrounded myself with friends who naturally gravitate towards me and me towards them, who can also have a ripe giggle at themselves and the foibles of life, and perhaps have a little bit of a dark sense of humour as well. So that's just the way it is. Dr. Maté also tells Harry that he thinks he's got issues with substance abuse, and then quickly adds in, because it's all live, I'm not saying you're an addict or anything. Well, kind of are, Doctor. But Harry, it becomes clear, has been clear for a long time, has this obsession with therapy, and he says that he's learned a new language which he feels that his relatives did not speak. Yet that language is called nonsense on stilts, Harold. Otherwise known in Latin as gobbledygook. And no, members of the royal family do not speak that kind of language. And as you'll know, he goes on to speak about the joys of smoking cannabis, I believe. And I'm not a fan of cannabis. I'm not in any way precious about it. I've got loads of friends that do that. All my friends, you know, the vast majority of them, and me, dabble here and there, or have dabbled here and there with many bits and bobs, as most of you have. And, you know, some take a fancy, some don't. His fancy is cannabis. And I know some people, quite a few people whose fancy is cannabis. And I've got to tell you, I've never thought that it had good long-term effects. And for legal reasons, I'm going to say, I don't know if Harry still does it. I can't remember if he's clarified if he's still doing it to this day. I believe he said that intimated that he was still doing it in 2020 with Meghan, you know, having a puff of this, that and the third out in the garden. In my experience, the long-term effects especially for certain individuals of certain character, is never good, especially those with a disorder, if you like, such as attention deficit disorder. I remember living with a bloke for a while who was not a close friend, but him, along with a boss of mine actually at one point, relied heavily on nightly use, you know, in the evenings having that joint. Many successful people, by the way, and I'm thinking of a trader that I know, I'm thinking of a very successful Oscar-winning record producer that I know, and a DJ. They rely on their cannabis in the evenings. I'm sure some of you will. They have to have it in the evenings. But after a long time, I find that it turns into this Jekyll and Hyde affair, which I think is possible what you get with Harry as well. And when they're not on it, and when they're in the mornings and they're all stressed out and they're waiting for their fix in the evenings, they are high drama, paranoid, so much paranoid, and it's like their brain cells are being slowly fried. This is just experience that I've noticed here, there and everywhere. As I say, I'm not a doctor. That's what I've noticed. Especially if they have a hectic personality to begin with, the contrast is magnified. And anxiety can be soothed so very successfully, as Harry's found with the drugs, but it's also intensified when they can't, because, you know, they can't smoke these drugs or use them 24/7, and when they're not there, the anxiety creeps in and builds up, you know. And there's this weird paradox of luxuriating in diagnoses, as Harry seems to do. He seems to luxuriate every time somebody tells him, you know, he's eager to wear another badge, isn't he? Another badge of trauma. Yet at the same time, he's defensive about it. he doesn't really want you to think. It's like he wants to give you this list of excuses, this diagnosis, but at the same time he wants to defend himself and, in a way insinuate that he can rise above all those afflictions. So he's kind of got this yin-yang, backwards-forwards pull. Since the age of 12, apart from being in a state of shock, I was in fight or flight, he says. Well, he still seems to be in the same mode, doesn't he? Fighting the royal family or fleeing to California. And also, I want to tell you, bear in mind when he talks about these different languages of therapy that he's learned but his family haven't got their head around. Bear in mind that, as I've mentioned recently, Catherine has attended therapy sessions for her brother who was suicidal and is highly praised by James Middleton, who is also a deeply disturbed man and has been in many ways. She's attended. Other members of the royal family have sought professional counsel. Harry is the worst advertisement for therapy. Just because they don't speak his kind of therapy speak, perhaps it's because the professionals they turn to are a bit more moderate and don't give him this sort of echo chamber effect that he thrives in, or pander to his royal status. If one is still self-medicating, as Harry may still be if he is still puffing away on certain substances, whether that's weed or ayahuasca or whatever it is, Puff the Magic Dragon, I don't know. If he is still self-medicating, no matter how herbal or how organic the ingredients, shall we say, for this recipe of the peace pipes, then as far as I'm concerned, one is simply pacifying oneself, releasing oneself from the grip of trauma temporarily. But this panacea is not a cure, is it? This is not a cure. And Dr. Mattei at one point does actually agree with my concerns, actually, that psychedelics are not a panacea for dealing with trauma. And on the subject of ADD diagnoses, I actually recorded something about this in a previous broadcast, but if my memory serves me correct, I cut it out during the edit. Sometimes I'll edit out large sections because I can just waffle on and on and on. Well, it is what it is. Sometimes it's too much. I recorded a section about ADD because there is a phenomenon at the moment of people in their thousands being diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, whatever they are, all these different things, and lots being diagnosed with autism. Sometimes it's a good diagnosis and correct. Sometimes it's very positive for people's lives, but there are loads who are just being misdiagnosed and told that they have these disorders willy-nilly, when really they are not. And there's been a big expose about this recently because it's very lucrative to get the diagnosis done. And people, especially young ones, they're lining up to be diagnosed with these conditions. And for those of you that have them, it's a little bit obscene because it dilutes the seriousness of them. And I happen to know somebody who was very helpfully assisted with a diagnosis of ADD, or was it ADHD? One of them anyway, my dear. And I never had a clue that she had it, by the way, and I'm talking about one of my very closest friends, the one who took me to the bungalow in Santa Monica, actually. And I would never have thought that she would have such a thing, but it was a sort of gentle form or mild form of ADHD that Gina Davis has got, which prevents one from being as organised as one wants in life. It scatters the brain a bit. You can't really focus on particular tasks. And when she told me about it, I could see in her what she meant in her personality. It's been very helpful for her. It's made her understand some of the things that made it tough in her inner world that even her closest friends weren't really privy to. So I understand that these diagnoses can absolutely be a benefit and help people tackle problems in life. I do, but I also think there is a danger in misdiagnosing. And also a danger in putting every problem that you've got, every obstacle down to various disorders in your psyche and your personality, and chucking another label your way or another badge. People have said my wife saved me. I was stuck in this world and she was from a different world and helped draw me out of that. Well, we're all in some sort of predicament, my dear. We're all in some kind of world, aren't we? Yeah, you're in the royal world. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Because he was asked at one point in the interview, was he able to roam around castles as a child and whether they found trapdoors? And he says, certainly as kids it was an adventure, running around that kind of place. Not so many trapdoors, but lots of fun things to investigate. You think it's normal, but it's anything but. Yeah, well, you should spare a thought, my dear. Spare a thought for those that don't have 10 castles to run around and limitless Balmoral scenery and landscapes and all kinds of adventures. Spare a thought for those in high-rise tower blocks whose only form of recreation is running up and down the corridors and the stairs past drug addicts and all kinds of various seedy characters, on those kind of estates, those with a very bleak outlook, those in the projects, or even those from fancy highfalutin areas who are going through financial ruin, who don't have the backup of the Crown Estate or the sovereign grant or whatever going for them in the privy purse. Spare a thought. You've been exposed to so much poverty and suffering, and you seem to have a genuine compassion for it, one that I do not doubt, but it still doesn't seem to have shaken your core, does it? That you are not the most unfortunate, pathetic soul in the world. Harry, you are really not. So buck it up, spare a thought for others. He says, my partner is an exceptional human being. Yeah, she is, ain't she? Yeah, she is. Exceptional. And I am grateful for the... What's that say? I am grateful for the space that she's given me. Yeah, you are a pair of space invaders when you're all spaced out. Why not call her Meghan, my dear? You're no longer royalty. You don't have to say, my wife, my husband and I. Yeah, that is royal, but you ain't royal. Yeah, you're these relaxed kids of Montecito kicking it around, the OC. Yeah, and the 904, what was it? Beverly Hills 90420. Beverly Hills 901 off. Beverly Hills 90. Why can't I remember what it is? Before my time, dear, but Beverly Hills 90210. Yes. The old cells. Maybe some of my cells are frying, my dear. Beverly Hills. Yeah, the OC, the 90210 kids. That's who we are, dear. Yeah, you're all supposed to be all relaxed and cool and down with the kids. Drop your ducal titles. Drop all this, my wife, my partner, my beloved. She's nutmeg. She is nutmeg, my dear. And you are nuts. Ginger nuts. Harry talks about wanting to make up for all the hugs that he didn't get as a child and all the affection from his family. He talks about wanting to smother his children with love. But interestingly, and in fairness to him, at least he's candid about it, he admits that there's moments of panic when he feels that he falls short of giving those hugs and he tries to make up for it. So it sounds like they don't also come that naturally to him, but suddenly he'll think, I'm not giving them enough love, I'm not showing them, and I want to heal the trauma of my past and not pass it on to them, so I've got to smother them with love and hugs, which is very nice, I'm sure. But if I was to play devil's advocate, I would say that this approach from Harry, his children will intuit that sense of panic and the unnatural attention of the smothering love, those moments. They will intuit that. Kids know, children... You know this. You knew things, didn't you, that were going on that your parents thought didn't. Little nuances in their relationship. Kids know. They can sniff it out and they can sense it. Grown-ups think they're so clever and can hide a lot of things. Kids know. Kids know more sometimes. They have that wisdom of being a little bit closer in years to the divine energy. Now, on the subject of ayahuasca, I must admit I am no expert, so I'm not going to go into it. I was surprised, because I didn't know this, that people do it recreationally, because Harry admits during this that he started doing ayahuasca, he started doing it recreationally, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the people that I've met that have used ayahuasca, and mainly people that I've met through, one sort of can segment one's life and part of my life is segmented into my yoga friends from various excursions that I've had into the yoga community, various retreats, and also well-being retreats, sort of with Buddhist slants on them, mindfulness, this kind of thing, before it was fashionable. And friends from that sort of world have gone on retreats, usually to places I think like Peru, this kind of thing, and they go off to some remote hut with the chaperone, and they've always been guided through, and most of them have had fabulous experiences with this ayahuasca. Some of them have had very scary trips, this ayahuasca, but they've always been under the guidance of somebody who really knows what they're doing. It's well chaperoned, it's well guided, and it's like a sort of one-off thing that you do every few months or maybe even every few years. But I didn't realise that it's used recreationally. And again, that just seems like another crutch, no matter how good it makes one feel. But I am somebody who has come to know that it has had a positive influence on the lives of many people in my life, so I'm not going to throw any doubt on that. I don't know what the long-term effects are, but it is what it is. In one way, another way it's helpful, because you see this fog that Harry is in. He's in this fog of therapy, of dealing with his trauma all the time, and psychedelic drugs, and this atmosphere of finding a panacea for all his ills and his complaints. And one can certainly feel a certain sense of sympathy for that, because the boy must be in a lot of pain and still carries a lot of pain. He admits himself he's still dealing with it and getting through it. But it is exposing to the world how unreliable his memory recall might be, his sort of transference of emotional development and emotional memories, his emotional recall. And as I said at the beginning of this broadcast, for me, it exposes his relationship to Megan as another form of drug. And if it was me in that relationship, I wouldn't want to be reduced to a drug, being worshipped because a drug for their internal chemistry and, their dopamine fix of the day. And yes, that is what falling in love is to a certain extent. But if the love is to be real and is to have its foundations in something really authentic, then you have to get past that first flush of the honeymoon period, past the 7-year itch, and we're not even at the 7-year stage yet with the Harkles. But eventually that stage will pass, and that druggy rush will pass. And the interesting thing is going to be finding out what is left then of this husk of a relationship, isn't it? I think that is where the real interesting story is going to unfold, unfurl, or undo. Who can say? Nothing's for certain. All we know is that this story, this royal fable, being played out before our eyes on the grand stage, that culminated last year with the glories of the Queen's, the late Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee, thrilled and entertained us all. So the best thing you can do, my dear, is to jump onto this roller coaster ride and ride it, my dear. Ride it like it is the King of England, my dear, like you are Camilla Shand. Get in that shandy and drinking from the royal cup, my dear. That is the best way to handle it. That is the best way to stay royal. That is the best way to stay haughty, naughty and fruity, and of course on royal duty, because we are soon to emerge at the coronation, the coronation, after all these decades of hundreds of years of the late Queen. Now it is the age of the Carolean, and it is time for him to sit beside that throne as the boss man that he is, as the alpha king that he really is. Show those Harkles how it's done, and show the kingdom what a king is, and how it is to be royal, my dear. And I remain a loyal queen at his side. Yes, I do, my dear, and I see the queen in you. Yes, I do, my dear. I see the kings and queens in you, and it just fills me with royal pride. My tip jar is in the description box below, and I think I just bloody well deserved it. So come on, roll up, put some tips in the jar, my dear, and I will catch up with you oh so soon. Happy Sunday, have a good time at church, please send the Lord my love, and I send you all the royal blessings of the day. Toodle pip.